On September 11, 2025, Annapolis, Maryland, was gripped by sudden tension. What began as an ordinary morning quickly shifted into a day that would be remembered for its uncertainty and fear. The US Naval Academy, usually a symbol of order and discipline, became the focus of a major security alert, its gates transformed into barriers against an unknown threat. Reports of a potential threat quickly spread, drawing national attention and sparking a wave of concern across the country. Authorities responded swiftly, locking down the campus and instructing everyone to shelter in place. The urgency in their voices left no room for doubt. This was a real emergency. The yard, normally bustling with midshipmen and activity, fell eerily silent. Sirens and urgent commands replaced the usual sounds of daily life. News of the lockdown raced through social media, leaving parents and loved ones desperate for updates. Rumors and speculation only heightened the anxiety. Stark video footage showed people running for safety, hands raised in compliance with police. The fear was visible on every face. The lockdown at such a prominent military institution was a jarring reminder of modern vulnerabilities, even in places thought to be secure. The Naval Academy, a symbol of American strength and tradition, now appeared under siege, its community united in uncertainty. The day's events raised urgent questions about security and crisis communication in a digital age where information and misinformation spread rapidly. As the story unfolded, it became clear this was no ordinary threat. The response was measured, but the stakes felt higher than ever. The community and the nation watched, waiting for answers. Every update was met with both hope and dread. The seriousness of the response underscored the gravity of the situation, as emergency vehicles lined the campus and officials coordinated their efforts. Even the most secure places can be shaken by uncertainty. The sense of vulnerability was palpable, echoing through the empty halls. The events of that day would be dissected for lessons and warnings, prompting new conversations about preparedness and resilience. The reality of the threat and the response would echo far beyond Annapolis, influencing security protocols nationwide. Piece by piece, the truth behind the lockdown began to emerge as investigators worked tirelessly to uncover what really happened that day. Investigators moved quickly, mobilizing teams across multiple agencies to respond to the unfolding crisis. Their first priority was to trace the source of the threat, using every digital tool at their disposal. The alarming messages had been posted anonymously on social media, a tactic designed to spread fear and confusion among students and staff. The digital nature of the threat complicated the search, forcing law enforcement to navigate the anonymous world of the internet, where identities are easily hidden and trails can vanish in seconds. After hours of digital sleuthing, they discovered the posts came from a former midshipman, expelled from the academy months earlier for disciplinary reasons. This personal connection suggested a motive rooted in anger or grievance, hinting at a desire for revenge or to make a statement. The fact that the threat came from an insider made it even more disturbing, raising fears that the perpetrator might know the campus intimately. The perpetrator used advanced methods to mask their identity, employing IP spoofing and encrypted accounts to make it appear the posts originated from inside the academy itself. This deception convinced authorities the danger was imminent and internal, prompting an urgent escalation of security protocols. The digital smokescreen forced a massive real-world response, with emergency vehicles and law enforcement flooding the campus. The incident highlighted how virtual threats can trigger real chaos, as students and staff scrambled to evacuate and the campus was thrown into turmoil. Law enforcement faced a new challenge. Credible-sounding threats can now be made from anywhere in the world, with just a few keystrokes. The lockdown was a direct result of this digital manipulation, as authorities worked to secure every entrance and protect those inside. The consequences were immediate and far-reaching, drawing national media attention and leaving the community shaken. A single online post had paralyzed a major institution, proving that in the digital age, a few words on a screen can have the power to disrupt thousands of lives. The academy and law enforcement responded with remarkable precision and urgency, moving quickly to assess the situation and protect everyone on campus. Emergency protocols were activated immediately. A full campus-wide lockdown was ordered to ensure no one was left vulnerable. All doors were locked, lights were turned off, and everyone was instructed to shelter in place, waiting for further instructions. Multiple agencies, local police, state police, FBI, and NCIS quickly arrived and coordinated their efforts, pooling resources and expertise. A secure perimeter was established, and officers began methodically clearing buildings, room by room, to ensure no threat remained. The heavy police presence underscored the seriousness of the threat, with flashing lights and tactical teams visible across the campus. Communication was critical. The Academy used social media, its website, and direct alerts to provide real-time updates to students, staff, and families. Official statements, though limited for safety, reassured anxious families and the public that every possible measure was being taken. The operation was cautious and thorough, as officers moved carefully through hallways, given the belief the threat was internal and ongoing. People were seen running with hands up, following law enforcement instructions for safety, as officers worked to evacuate and secure each area. This was standard procedure in active threat situations, practiced regularly to ensure everyone knew what to do in a real emergency. The goal was clear: protect everyone, even amid confusion and fear, and guide them to safety as quickly as possible. The lockdown's intensity reflected the uncertainty of the moment, as students and staff waited in silence, hoping for good news. Every possibility had to be considered, and officers worked together to anticipate and respond to any potential developments. The Academy's response was swift, coordinated, and focused on safety, with every team member playing a vital role. The campus waited, tense and uncertain, for the all clear, hoping the danger would soon pass and normalcy could return. Inside the lockdown, fear and confusion reigned. A midshipman, sheltering in a secured room, was on edge as officers swept the building. In a tragic misunderstanding, the student mistook a law enforcement officer for the suspected intruder. Acting defensively, the midshipman used a training weapon, meant for exercises, not harm. The officer, struck unexpectedly, responded as trained for an assault in a high-risk situation. Neither realized the other's true identity in the chaos. The split-second mistake escalated the crisis. The incident was a direct result of the fear and confusion sown by the initial threat. A moment's misjudgment turned a tense situation into a tragedy. The consequences would be immediate and severe. The Academy's worst fears had materialized, not from an outside threat but from within. The officer, believing they were under attack, fired their weapon. The midshipman was shot, turning the security alert into a medical emergency. The sound of gunfire inside the locked-down building heightened the day's terror. First responders rushed to stabilize the student, navigating the lockdown's restrictions. A medevac helicopter landed on campus, underscoring the gravity of the situation. The midshipman was airlifted to a hospital, their condition critical but stable. Relief came as officials confirmed the student was expected to recover. The incident left a deep impact on the Academy community. It was a painful reminder of how quickly confusion can lead to tragedy. The investigation would need to untangle the chain of events that led to this moment. The day's trauma would not be easily forgotten. As the crisis unfolded, Maryland Governor Wes Moore coordinated with local, state, and federal agencies. After a thorough search, law enforcement found no evidence of an active shooter or physical threat. The campus was declared secure. The digital trail led to the expelled student behind the hoax. Governor Moore's office issued a clear statement: there was no credible threat to the Naval Academy. The lockdown and law enforcement response had been precautionary, based on what appeared to be a real danger. The governor's message reassured families and the public. The incident exposed how a single false threat could trigger massive disruption and real harm. The official confirmation ended the immediate crisis, but it also raised new questions about handling digital hoaxes. The Academy and the state would have to reckon with the aftermath. The threat was fake, but the consequences were all too real. The Naval Academy incident was part of a larger wave of threats at colleges nationwide. On and around September 11th, campuses across the U.S. faced similar lockdowns and evacuations. The pattern suggested either coordination or a copycat effect, spreading fear and disruption. Institutions from Massachusetts to New Mexico were affected, stretching law enforcement thin. Students, faculty, and parents everywhere felt the anxiety of not knowing if their campus would be next. Each threat, credible or not, demanded a full response. The constant alerts led to threat fatigue in many communities. Federal agencies, including the FBI, began investigating possible links between incidents. Was this the work of one group or multiple individuals inspired by each other? The scope of the problem elevated it to a national security concern. The vulnerability of campuses was now in the spotlight. A disturbing aspect of the threat wave was the targeting of historically black colleges and universities, HBCUs. Many HBCUs received threats, suggesting a racially motivated campaign. This was not new. HBCUs have faced similar intimidation before. The threats were seen as attacks on the history and progress these institutions represent. Schools like Alabama State, Bethune-Cookman, Southern University, and others were affected. In Maryland, local HBCUs stayed on high alert, even if not directly threatened. Leaders reassured students and staff, taking every precaution. The targeting of HBCUs drew condemnation and was labeled an act of domestic terrorism. Federal authorities pledged to pursue those responsible. The threats were a stark reminder of persistent racial hatred. For HBCU students, the fear was personal and immediate. The Naval Academy lockdown was triggered by a digital hoax, but its impact was painfully real. A single online post led to a massive law enforcement response and a tragic shooting. The incident exposed how easily misinformation can create chaos and divert critical resources. It highlighted the dangers of confusion and fear in crisis situations. The governor's confirmation ended the immediate threat, but the lessons linger. Institutions must now rethink how to distinguish real threats from hoaxes. The day's events forced a national reckoning on digital security and crisis response. The Academy's swift action protected many, but the cost was high. The story is a cautionary tale about the power of misinformation and the human cost of fear. As the nation moves forward, the lessons of that day will shape future security strategies. Vigilance and clear communication are more important than ever.